Hello, welcome to this webinar on ESS BIZGRANTS. The ESS BIZGRANTS website is featured as part of the subscription for ESS BIZTOOLS Gold package, or you can subscribe to ESS BIZGRANTS as a separate standalone product package. ESS BIZGRANTS is a quick and efficient way to find government grants for small medium enterprises. One of the things that really upsets small medium enterprises is when they find out that their competitor has received a government grant and they knew nothing about it. And when I talk to some of these businesses and inquire, who do you think should have told you about the government grant? Every one of them virtually indicates their accountant, because if their accountants are their trusted advisors, shouldn't they be keeping them informed of government grants? So it's a proactive service for your clients to be keeping them informed of the grants that they could potentially apply for. And it's a new income stream for accountants. It's not only the fees that you can earn from assisting your clients in the grant applications, it's then the work that flows from the client having been awarded a grant, because a significant amount of the projects that the grant can be spent on includes items which accountants who are offering business advisory services can deliver. Things like business plans, strategic plans, budgets, cash flow forecasts, debtors reviews, lean management evaluations, some human resources work relative to Fair Work Australia, corporate governance issues, assisting clients to have a better understanding of their roles, responsibilities and duties as company directors. That's just some of the work that can be undertaken with funding from a government grant. That if you have helped secure the grant for your client, I would have thought that you have a very important role to play then in being able to deliver that work and then earn fees. That around 50% of the fee is in effect being paid by the government. I'd like to share with you a testimonial written by David Smith, the Managing Director of Smith Inc. Proprietary Limited, and the Managing Director and Organiser of the Australian Technology Showcase for Accountants conferences that are held every year. And David's also a former President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Australia. This is a tool that should reside in every accountant's office. Few accountants are aware of the grants available to their clients. It's a minefield of federal, state, local, special purpose grants that seem to change almost daily. ESS BIZGRANTS has done the hard work in bringing together all this information in an easy-to-use application. If an accountant wants to make a client happy, get them some government money. ESS BIZGRANTS is the tool that can quickly help accountants quickly assess whether a client might be able to access a grant. David Smith. We're now going to give you a demonstration of ESS BIZGRANTS in operation, so that you can be aware of how it works. I'll just go through the log-on process and then we'll get underway. When you first go into the members homepage, there's some material there which explains the various terminologies that have been utilised within the system. And obviously, as a subscriber, you can read that at your leisure. I'm going now to the members home area. That's what we've been in, sorry. We're going to the client profile, and we're going to utilise a dummy company which we have utilised. I'm going back to edit so I can show you how the system works. In entity type, you need to select which type of entity that this client is. Well, we've already selected that they're a company. You need to answer whether they export, do they import, and we've answered yes in both of those cases. This business has a turnover of about $5 million and has 15 employees. So we've ticked that it's in the 0 to 20 employee category, but we also have some other bands of employees which fits in with the various government grant employee requirements. Do you have an ABN? Yes. How many years has the business been operating? We've answered over 3 years, but it could have been these other periods, which again fit in with some of the government grants. So what we've done is gone through and looked at hundreds of government grants and categorised them into the various categories that they require answers to. Annual turnover is another area like that. There are a number of bands on turnover. This business has got a turnover of $5 million, so we said the turnover fell in the 1.5 to $20 million. They're registered for GST, they're not tax exempt, and they do some research and development. So we'll just save it again now. We then move into the address. We then have to insert the address, and once we get down to postcode, the system then identifies that Townsville is in the outer regional area or an outer regional area of Australia, and it's identified as that. There are some grants that are still applicable to some of these special regional areas. Financial is just a summary of the financial data we've put in. And then we need to look at the business industry code. Now, these are the codes issued by the Australian Taxation Office. Accountants will be very familiar with them because they're the codes that you insert on the tax return. Just remember, when you're looking for a grant, at times you might have to be a bit more adventurous than what you might be in a tax return. And the tax return, you just lodge the industry code and really don't think about it. In this case, you need to think about it and make sure that what the client is currently doing is best described by the industry codes that you're inserting. For argument's sake, 3 years ago when this business started, it might have been a wholesaler, but it's now developed into something else. And you need to add to the code that's being used by the company in its tax return for any other services that they're now doing. So in the analysis, this company obviously plays a role in some of this sort of engineering construction, but they also do some structural metal product manufacturing. So that one's also been added. So we could have had the situation where on the tax return only 31099 was shown, but we've added to it 22210 because they're also undertaking that type of work. So once you've entered all that, and that hasn't taken too long to answer those questions, you then click on Search Grants. Now the system then gives you a list of pending grants. Now this is a trial site that we use. We also have potentially eligible, and there's already 4 grants that are shown there for this business, and we have potentially ineligible. There's none shown there. So let me just show you then. We go back to pending, how this works. So in pending, if you're going through a grant and you're wanting to see how it works, so this was a Queensland business, so there's a number of grants to do with Queensland. But if we go into any of the grants, it doesn't really matter. You get an executive summary, which you can read and say, oh yeah, that sounds like this particular business that we've got. If you want to view the funding, you click on funding, and the funding for that grant is from 1,000 to 20,000 on a 50% grant basis. If you want to look at the application toolkit, there's a list of the application requirements, which will assist in preparing the grant application if you are asked to do that by your client, because we've gone through and dissected the grant application requirements into each of its components to facilitate the preparation of a complying grant application. It's no use preparing one that doesn't comply with whatever the government department requires. We have made provision here on the right-hand side for you to insert your team members who are going to be involved in undertaking the assignment. There is a paper on how this grant operates, which I'll bring up now. So you can read how the Business Growth Grant program works. You'll notice it is for the government's targeted key industries. So everything is there. You can badge that and send it to your client if you wished. And then there is a specific paper on the infrastructure-related construction and services industries, because that's the industry that we've identified that this client would fall within. So there's another article there that you could read and say, yeah, I'm quite satisfied that that helps. And we also have a list of advisors and facilitators. These are the people who are under contract to the federal government to work for the Entrepreneurs Program, and this particular grant is part of the Entrepreneurs Grant's responsibilities. So if you need to make contact with any of these people, you have got their details there, can read a bit about them, and their contact information is also there. So we are supplying you with a range of information to assist you to be able to offer a fully professional service. Then for each grant, there is some additional criteria. Does the business operate in the infrastructure industry? And I'm going to answer yes to that. We do that. Is the business solvent, able to pay their debts? Yes. Has the business been operating under an appropriate structure and has for the last 3 years, and does it have a turnover at least $1.5 million? Well, I told you the turnover was $5 million, so we can say yes. Has the applicant ever received the Business Growth Grant or a Tailored Advisory Service Grant under the Enterprise Connect program? Now, that program was the predecessor to this particular program. We know we haven't, so we need to answer no for that. Let me show you what had happened if we answered yes. If we'd answered yes, it would have just told us to go to close. And when I go to close, and if we then looked at potentially ineligible, that particular grant for infrastructure related was going to be shown in ineligible. If we say, oh no, we made a mistake, we could just go back to this, go to the additional criteria and change the answer back to yes. Sorry, we'll now change it to no. It brings up apply now. If we clicked on that, that would take us to the government website, so we could apply. But we want to show you the effect of this because we want to show you the report that you can produce for your client. So we've clicked on that it will go into potentially yes. So we now have in potentially eligible, we now have 5 grants that are sitting there. So at this stage, and I won't go any further, you could then say, let's print the report. So this is a report that you would print to be handed to your client. It's got the client's name. It will have your name, not ESS BIZTOOLS. It'll have the name of your accountancy or advisory business. It is dated the date that you prepare the report, and it gives a synopsis on the 5 grants that at this stage we've identified for your client. Our recommendation is that when the client comes in for their annual accounts conversation with you, that in a very proactive manner you table this report together with a copy of the article on each of these grants that have been identified, and then ask the client what they would like to do. In most cases, the client will say, yes, we wish to proceed with an application, because that's great, and will you prepare the applications for us? Our recommendation is that you then indicate that you will create a separate work in progress file for this particular client. This is for the grant applications. You'll record your time and you'll charge your times in accordance with your normal procedures, and we'll be billing the clients on a monthly basis for the work that is undertaken. So that's the overview of how ESS BizGrants works. You can log on and obtain a 14-day free trial to trial the system on 1 or 2 of your clients to see firsthand how it works. But being proactive and offering grants to your company clients is a great way to introduce services to them in a very proactive manner. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Have a great day. Goodbye.